Just before the 2024 Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame induction ceremony, a friend told me, if you are on a quest to help preserve the history of vintage BMX, you need to record this event. He said, think about it. Here, you can hear many great stories all in one setting. I could not have agreed more. So, I threw my gear together and got on the road to Tulsa.
Good afternoon. If I have not had a chance to meet you, I'm Shane Fernandez. I'm the president of USA BMX. And before I even get started, again, congrats to all the inductees. So cool to see this. So awesome to be here in our state. So I love asking this question at the beginning of every one of my speeches here. How many of you, this is the first time at this facility? Raise your hand. All right. What do you all think? Amazing, right? Yeah. Who would have thought that BMX would keep rising in the way it has? And the fact that what you see here, for all you inductees, all you previous inductees, all the BMXers that are here from this hometown, this is your home. Cash was kind of interesting. I was looking at the first sketch that I had done with BA about what this would look like in Tulsa. And I looked at the date, and it was 2014. So here we are 10 years from now, and we're having this is our third Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame. So, amazing to see what's happening.
And Scott Shope in the back is the director of this entire facility. And if you love it, I mean, go pat that guy on the back as well. USA BMX has been a great partner to the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame and just to all of us. So we're so glad you're here. The team that puts this together, starting with Keith Stevens over there, who made the really cool reel up front. Thank you, Keith. Kenneth O'Brien, where are you? You're okay. You don't have your Devo hat on, so I'm embarrassed for you. But there we go. Okay, he's back. Kenneth designs all of the art for the Hall of Fame and has done a magnificent job. And I've got a bunch of people here. Jimmy McCann's not here today. Charles Long, where are you? Charles Long, one of our board members, 2022 inductee into the Hall of Fame. Candace Hoffman right over here, who is just a legend in her own mind, or in her spare time. Sorry, I wrote that down wrong. She's a BMX racer and has been so kind to help us with every event. Bubba McIntosh, where are you, sir? Bubba's here and on our board of directors, and Jeff Hester over here, who is working on developing the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame website. And so there is a great team of people putting this together. Now that you're an inductee, Adam, you're on the board of directors if you show up. And that's what I told everybody when we started. I have a 5-year plan. We have to build a board of directors because I couldn't put you on it knowing that soon you'd be in it. And now you're in it, so you can be on it. Does that make sense? Anyway, welcome to the board of directors as well. Gene Roden, where are you, sir? One of the early, I don't know what the right word is for you. Legend's not strong enough. Randy, help me out here. I don't have a word for Gene. He's an icon in the sport, and was one of the early developers on whose back we all gained traction in this sport. And there's so many people that were that way. They just gave, and we appreciate it. That if we don't collect and maintain and respect and appreciate the history, then we've missed the essence of our life. And the BMX history in the state of Oklahoma literally is second to none. It was the third state that had a number with it was California, Arizona, then Oklahoma. And that's in the very first tour stopped in Shawnee, Oklahoma at a national that later kind of became the Grand Nationals, one of the largest sporting events economically in Oklahoma economics. So you guys have done great. The number of great riders from this state is just unbelievable. And the respect that the rest of the country has for the riders of this state tells me all that I need to know. Today, I guess it's still daytime out there, we carve a place in history for those who have exhibited excellence. It's not just for the racer who went fast, it's for those who made a contribution to the sport that we may have a sandbox to play in. The people on this list left an indelible footprint on the history of BMX and for the future of BMX. Our first inductee today will be the most difficult for me. I worked for the National Hall of Fame doing this same thing for the last 18 years. No induction for me will be any more meaningful than this one. I don't know how old I was, 12 or 13, and we built the track and we were trying to get adults to help us. And we had gone to the Optimist Club and they laughed at us. And then we went to City Hall and they laughed at us, but they did do one thing, is they gave us Jay Gunter's phone number and address. Without Jay Gunter, there is no BMX in Oklahoma. He was the guy that stepped up and said, "You want us to help you with your track?" And we're like, "Yes." And he goes, "I'm in. And I'm all in. And I'll stay in as long as it takes to get the job done." That first national that you graded the track for, there's a picture of Jeff Ruminer. Jay built that turn. Okay, it's right out here on the wall. And everybody thinks it's a picture of Jeff Ruminer. It's a picture of the berm you built in the first turn at the very first Shawnee track where we held the first national ... that became the Grands. So it was substantial. Jay Gunter has been in my life now since I was a little child. And now at my age, Jay, how old are you now? 77, man. They never told us we would get old. All right, well, happy birthday then as well. One of the great honors of my life in BMX is to announce the induction of Mr. Jay Gunter into the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame. Jay?
I want to thank everybody for BMX. 1978, I was the new hire for the parks superintendent there in Shawnee. I used to motocross myself. So, like Cash said, he went to City Hall, they threw up their hands, no help to come to see me. Well, I was the kind of guy, I got two sons that they went to the age yet to motocross, to race. So I he came and Matt Rammer come into my office, 13 years old. Told me what the City Hall told him what someone recommended him. He still don't remember who did that. But anyway, I said, well, let's go look at it. So I think I followed them out there to the track where I was at now, or with then. I looked at it and I thought, well, I'm motocross, so you got jumps, you got curves, you got this and that. So I could, put that into it, but in a smaller scale. So I went out there one Saturday and I spent all day doing it. Well, while they were racing stuff, he'd notified me a couple of times when some changes made. So I dropped on that 580 case back home, damn tractor, big old thing. Went out there and helped him make changes to it. Well, about the end of the season there, they had a ceremony there at one of our Dairy Queens there at Shawnee. Cash called me, wanted me to attend. So I go up there and walked in, everybody, give me a hand and everything, okay. Well, Cash handed me this plaque. I looked at it, thanking me for what I did. I looked at it as a bicycle, but it had a motor on it. I thought, well, see, the trophy companies hadn't caught up with that bicycle phrase yet. Well, I got rid of all my motorcycle trophies, softball trophies. I kept that plaque. In fact, Cash has got a picture of it in his phone. But anyway, I was honored to do that. 40 years later, here I am in. But anyway, I want to thank everybody at BMX. I want to thank Cash Matthews. And keep it rolling, guys.
Our next inductee is not here, so I will do his induction speech. John Farbs, real fast. Nobody beat him. Congratulations. John was sorry he could not be here tonight. John lives down in Dallas and he is very, very busy with his oil company, and it's just hard for him to break away. But John was fortunate. He was a great athlete. He was great at everything. And he got to ride a lot with me and Jeff Rumener and Matt Raymer, but he was a little pipsqueak kid. And then by the time he was 13 and I was 16, I was really glad he was in a different class because he was just dynamic. He was unbeatable. And on John's behalf, we're happy to induct him into the Hall of Fame. And we'll make sure that we have an appropriate ceremony for him somewhere down the road, but he just could not make it tonight. So you inductees noticed that we put your name badges on handlebars. Like Leon, we put yours on a GT bike, and we put Rodney Cooper's on Richie Anderson's bike. Just because, does anybody know why that's funny? Okay, a few of you, those of you that know why that's funny, because Richie Anderson was unbeatable, literally one of the fastest guys in our sport. But Rodney managed to beat him in the trophy dash at the Worlds and double at that event. So we thought it appropriate to put Rodney's name badge on Richie Anderson's bike because that's kind of the people that we actually are. Now, do we have somebody accepting on his behalf? Okay, so we're all three of you. Cool, it's 10 minutes total. I knew Rodney as a little kid, and he's another one of those kids, when you saw him coming up, you were glad you were about to get out of the sport. And on behalf of the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame and USA BMX, it is a great honor for me to induct my friend and fellow BMX enthusiast, Mr. Rodney Cooper. Hot Rod.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Rodney Hot Rod Cooper and our family, I want to express our heartfelt thanks. Rodney had a passion for racing, competition, and BMX that was truly unparalleled. As a family, we expired. Oh, hold on there.
What?
All right.
We are
Immensely proud to see him recognized as this year's Pioneer inductee. It brings me so much joy knowing our mother is getting to witness the impact that she had on all of us. Countless hours spent hauling us around to tracks around the country. Her dedication, whether it's working in the concession stands or ensuring that all the kids at the Shawnee NBA BMX track, received a trophy. It meant more than she'll ever know. Rodney, my larger brother than life.
larger than life brother.
Yeah, larger than life brother. I know what I meant. And the kind of brother who always pushed to be first, whatever it was, BMX, racing, motocross, football, he believed in being the best, you had to compete against the best. If that meant racing up in a class, sneaking into a pro practice for a little extra gate time, whatever it was, Rodney worked hard and even played harder. I remember when we first started racing BMX on those Huffy frames that our dad bought us at Cook's, where my mom worked for many years. Those bikes didn't hold up well. After cracking them during our first practice, we found ourselves at the bicycle shop in Shawnee, where Larry Smith helped us out with a couple of used frames and forks. The bicycle shop became Rodney's first sponsorship. And to this day, Larry continues on supporting him, even designing a frame in his honor of Hot Rod, which is an incredible tribute. Thank you, Larry. I had no doubt that Rodney is looking down with that familiar grin and to love and support of his BMX family for honoring him. He probably would be proud, hold on here. He would probably be truly proud and ask, Mom, am I still making you proud? Mom, I want you to know how much Rodney loved and appreciated everything you did for him. Now, Rodney is racing in a place where he can get all the gate time he wants with no one holding his tire. I often wondered what he would think about how BMX has evolved. He was just a kid doing what he loved. I'm sure he's feeling honored to receive this award, and especially knowing that Mom is here still cheering him on. Mom was usually running the concession stand while juggling 5 kids at the racetrack. But at the 1983 Grand National here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, she stood up and cheered at the top of her lungs when Rodney won the open class against Richie Anderson. At that moment, when Rodney doubled at the Grand National, our mom stood up and with proud cheer that was unforgettable. I have many cherished moments of my brother, and while public speaking, you guys can tell, is not my forte. I wanted to express our gratitude to everyone who voted for Rodney to receive this award. And we are incredibly proud of him, and it means the world to us that his BMX family hasn't forgotten him. Race on, Hot Rod. Thank you all.
That's number 1. Number 19 is playing from it. Arizona, number 17, Scott Parker. Wisconsin, number 8, Wyatt Zeno. From 6 to 5, to Felix Wakeson. Rubber of California, number 10 is Matt Eger. From Gallifrey, number 7, Devin Diesel. Adam in the 72 from Oklahoma. Ryan Luxembourg. Here comes the 58 They're coming. Pearson right to the center. Rodney User on the lane. The 15 at Grand, beaten by Rodney Cooper from Oklahoma, I believe. Deputy Student number 1.
Mrs. Cooper ran the concessions at all of these things. JU built the track, she ran concessions. And when you look back on the number of people that collaborated to make sure we had a place to race and all of it, I mean, it is astonishing. And Mrs. Cooper, thank you as well. I know you don't remember me that well, but once I had an injury right on my chest. I fell on a tire, and you came over and dumped a bottle of hydrogen peroxide on it, and you taught me to dance sort of there. All right. You won't go to another Hall of Fame like this one in your lifetime, probably. We have 2 sets of siblings being inducted today. And that's rare. It's rare that it happens in any Hall of Fame. that here in the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, BMX is a family affair, and that we have families that live together and race together and competed together. Man, what a generational great thing to have happen in your family. And our next inductee is Rodney Cooper's sister, Cindy Cooper. And Cindy, before you come up, if you go back and look at all of the results, Cindy had to race the guys. And what was our class called back then for girls?
Fast.
Yeah, when it got advanced, it became powder puff. Yeah. Yeah, we tried to get the announcer at the Olympics to say powder puffs. Yeah, anyway. But Cindy Cooper had to race the boys, and she raced against them well, and she competed, and she won. And she was one of the early female racers in the sport of BMX in Oklahoma, but she was also one of the most dominant ones. So it is proud for me, and what an honor, Cindy, to induct you into the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame. Come on back up here.
This is hard after that last one. Good afternoon. I would like to thank everyone who voted for me to be inducted into the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame as one of the female racer inductees. This truly caught me by surprise. When Cash called to tell me that Rodney was being inducted, I cried. I was so happy to know that my big little brother would be inducted. Cash asked me to send him some pictures of Rodney and casually asked if I would send him a few of me as well. Well, I guess I should have been a hint, but shocker, apparently I'm a bit slow. When Cash called to tell me that I was being inducted, I was so surprised. The feeling that came over me was much different than the one that I had when I found out Rodney was being inducted. Rodney was a factory BMX rider. I was not. Rodney had raced many more races than I had, but I was being inducted. Then I thought about it. When I started racing, it was because I saw my brothers all racing, and being a tomboy that I was, I wanted to race. I didn't have a bicycle because when my dad bought the boys their HOFies at Cook's department store, I was told that I couldn't have one just like theirs. I had to get a girl's 3-speed bicycle with a basket on the front. Well, I'm also just a bit headstrong. So I decided to ride the 3-speed girl's bicycle with the little basket on the front down to Larry's bike shop and trade it in. I arrived at Larry's and told him that I needed a bike that I could race. Now imagine, here stood an 11-year-old girl with a HOFi 3-speed bicycle with a basket on the front that was purchased from a department store, asking Larry to trade it for a BMX bicycle. I knew that bicycles weren't cheap, but I didn't realize that I was asking him to do was just a little bit crazy. I left Larry's after a great deal of discussion with a used Raleigh frame and forks that I'm sure cost way more than the bicycle that I just traded in. And I began the long walk back across town in 100-degree weather. It was about halfway into my journey that I thought to myself, I must be crazy. It's hot out here, and I still have a long way to go. And what's Mom going to say when she comes home from work and finds out that I traded my brand new bicycle for a BMX frame and forks? Well, I made it home, and Rodney, being the great brother that he was, began helping me put together a bike so that I too could race. Neither one of us gave it a thought that it was strange that I too wanted to race. We had never seen any other girls race except in magazines. But it didn't matter. We just did it. As the saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work took on a whole new meaning for me at that point. As we worked over the week to get me ready for the upcoming Saturday race, he just helped. We arrived at the track, and I proudly went up to sign-ups with my brother, where I was told, we don't have a girls' class. To which I replied, that's fine, I'm here to race the boys. I was living a dream as I raced down the track that day. I didn't give a thought to the fact that there were no other girls racing. I just knew that I wanted to race and that I loved it. I continued to race the boys, and even won first. sorry, Ronnie.
Just got to throw that in, didn't you?
I told you it was already in the speech. I continued to race the boys and even won the first overall first place in the 12-year-old class at the NBA BMX Raceway. I remember looking at the picture that was taken of me proudly holding the first place trophy and my stepbrother Ronnie standing next to me holding the second place and Kendall Hall standing a little further back holding the third place. I was the only one in that picture that was smiling. But man, it felt great. I never felt like I didn't belong at the track. I'm sure there was a few boys that wish I didn't show up, but I was never made to feel like I didn't belong. In my small world of Shawnee, Oklahoma, I was the first girl to race at BMX. I'm not sure that I was the first girl in Oklahoma to race, but it sure felt that way given that it was quite a while before I got to race girls in Oklahoma on a regular basis. That never bothered me. I just love racing. The first time I ever raced in the National was in 1979 Swin Tour when it came through town at the NBA track. And I was so excited. Mom had been asked to put up some of the out-of-town riders at our home. Mom said yes. And our small 3-bedroom home that already held 5 racers turned into a wall-to-wall race space or bed space for our idols, Darrell Young, John Cruz, the Patterson brothers, and others that I cannot remember. It was great. We got to share their stories and learn about their experiences, and I was finally able to race girls for the first time at this national, and it was awesome. I didn't take home the first place trophy, but I did take home the third place trophy. Not too bad for my first time racing against factory-sponsored girls. We as a family traveled around the United States in our green van with the gold tinted windows, full of racers and bicycles. We camped at racetracks and campgrounds and loved every minute of it. BMX was very different back then. Every track had a different starting gate, layout, lighting system, but it was truly awesome. I never realized the sacrifice that my mother made so that we all could race. She never complained. She just made sure that we were able to do what we loved as much as we could. I have so many fond memories of racing and great stories from our travels to all the different tracks, but I'm not going to sit here and make you travel down memory lane with me. Instead, all I have to say is that if I made the difference in just one little girl's life, if I gave one little girl the courage to get out and race, then that right there is thanks enough. I'm so happy to have been a part of the BMX, and it's much more than racing. It's a lifestyle. It's not just a brotherhood, though. It's a sisterhood, too.
All right, on behalf of USA BMX and the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame, we are proud to induct Mr. J.C. Stacy for the 2024 class.
Yeah, Cash always says that racers were freestylers first, you know, doing the wheelies and the rock walks and all that. But most of the freestylers from the 70s and 80s also raced first. I was a 8-9-year-old kid racing in Shawnee, Oklahoma in Trosper Park. And just kind of got into freestyle. It just kind of happened. But first I want to thank my Uncle Randy Swaim, who worked for Bill Hicks at the House of Wheels bike shop back in the 1980s. He first took me to Trosper Park around 1979 and started my love of all things BMX. Warren and Junior Sato lived across the street from my grandmother's house in South Oklahoma City, and they first taught me to do 360s and rock walks and stuff to work on my racing skills. So in 1982, Mike Dominguez and Eddie Fiola showed up in downtown Shawnee riding on the van's fiberglass half pipe. Me being from McLeod, we were in Shawnee at the Crazy Days sale, and it was just luck that I saw them that day. I was blown away by the riding, and from then on, I was hooked on freestyle BMX. I don't remember exactly when I met Charles Long, but I always knew he and Dallas Sobrato were on a trick team that they had. And it was around 1983 that I got with Charlie and Jeff Hester, and the Freestyle Flyboys were formed. We performed at shows and demos across Oklahoma to promote the sport of BMX. And a big thank you goes out to Charlie for everything he did for our team. He set up our shows, got got us all our sponsors, and basically did everything to keep the team going throughout the years. Another thing Charlie did that never gets enough credit is for the years of freestyle competitions he did. He put on freestyle competitions all over the state that brought all the riders together and drove the progression of freestyle BMX through the 1980s. Thanks, Charlie. And of course, thanks, Jeff, for all you done. It was just me, you, and Charlie doing the shows for a lot of years till we got other guys that came on the team. So, and thanks for nominating me. And next person I want to mention is Larry Smith from the bicycle store in Shawnee. He was always helping us out with bikes, bike parts. We did a few shows in Shawnee, wrote a few parades for him. So thanks to him. And the biggest thanks goes to Bill Hicks and the House of Wheels. They were our first sponsor and always helping us out with anything we needed. The House of Wheels was kind of our hangout and base camp for a lot of years. And but being inducted into the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame is a great honor and a good way to end this summer. We lost my dad back in June, and I know he'd want to be there for this. But we lost Terrence Renfro back in August. He was a team member and an excellent rider. But on a more positive note, I'd like to thank all the team members from the beginning to the end. Charles Long, Dallas Labrada, Jeff Hester, Terrence Renfro, John Burks, Glenn Martin, Chris Franklin, Brian Shade, Chris Walkinen, Greg Potter, and Chris Scarberry. And lastly, I'd like to thank my wife, Susan Stacy, for being with me through it all and keeping it all together. And thank you all for voting for me.
All right.
Thank you.
The purpose of a Hall of Fame is to also write down the history. And none of us knows all of it, but all of us know some of it. And we want to get all of us that know some of it to contribute and go onto the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame page on Facebook, soon a website, because I want to hear your story. Like, not many people race the Claremore track with the 13-foot tall drop-off jump, right? Like, that was impossible. We raced it once and realized we weren't good enough. But I want to hear that story. We heard a story about a young man named Park Carter. And then in my travels with BMX, and I was out in California with a guy named Dave Volker, whose jersey hangs inside the National Hall of Fame. And we were just talking about the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. He's like, oh, dude, you got to find this kid. You got to find his family. You've got to find out about Park Carter. And Volker just goes off on who Park Carter was. And we had a great nomination from Joey, and then a couple of others came in as well. And then when Lord Volker speaks, you kind of have to listen to that. And I believe our committee made an excellent decision. And on behalf of USA BMX and the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame and our committee, Mr. Tim Carter will be accepting on behalf of his brother, Park Carter. Tim? All right.
We lost Park 4 years ago. So, sorry, but I'm the best you can do today, okay? So when this came about, if you read, my mother was supposed to be here. So before I even get into anything, it's kind of important, you've heard other people talk and how important, parents and other people are to make this happen. And so we're all from Veneta, Oklahoma. And if y'all have never been to Veneta, Oklahoma, I don't blame you. It's this quiet little town. And, I learned something today. And that's, Charlie, thank you, because I believe that I believe you put on the competition where Park first competed.
True.
Yes. Joe's Bike Shop. Was it Joe's Bike Shop?
No, I don't think it was Joe's. But the good thing about Park is he set up the Rebel. Well, he told me where to set up the one here in Tulsa. And we just showed up on a Friday and set up big contest for Saturday.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. So.
No permission. No permission. No permission.
So where I was about to go with this story, and I got sidetracked, is so Park was very fortunate as a kid because Park and I have the coolest freaking parents in the world. I'm telling you, Chris and Jody Carter. And they are so cool that the reason they're not here today is because they are in Las Vegas celebrating my youngest son's 21st birthday with him. So that is the same kind of spirit that, because I guarantee you there was not a national AFA competition in which Park Carter was entered that Jody Carter wasn't there. And our sister, who sits right back there, Bo, will you please raise your hand? She came along in 1986. So Park entered his last competition when she was 3 years old, and she is now a 38-year-old mother of three. So do the math there. So again, would not be here today, would not have the opportunity to I just wish Park could have seen this place. I mean, this is so cool what you guys have done here. And so what I'm going to do here is give you the best perspective I can, because I was merely just a deckhand on the ship, okay? But that ship had the coolest freaking captain you could ever imagine. And I'm just going to, real quick, because I don't want to forget anybody, and obviously I couldn't talk to Park and get this list in entirety, but these are just the names that come to my mind and the people that I know because we talked frequently, and these names, even 30 or more years later, would come out. Of course, our mom and dad. I mean, I've already said that. And and for everybody here that voted for him or whatever, thank you so much, okay? Stowe Emerson, our cousin Stowe, first introduced Park to the sport. We lost Stowe the end of August. And but somehow Stowe, he must have ran into you somewhere, I don't know, because he brought this idea back to Veneta, Oklahoma, and him and Park started riding. And I came in here today, and the very first thing that happened to me is that gentleman back there in the back, Brandon, would you please raise your hand? Brandon raised his hand, and I couldn't have been more shocked if I'd have seen a ghost. He came up and said hi to me. And he used to come from Claremore to Veneta to hang out with Park and Stowe back, was it 1984, 85, 86? Yeah, around that time frame. So that was sort of back in the early days. Joey Johnson. What Cash did not tell you is Joey is Park and I's other brother. Joey grew up 2.5, 3 blocks up the street. There was never anything that happened in Veneta, Oklahoma that Park, Timmy, and Joey wasn't involved in. So he was our other brother. He is the one that got spearheaded this and got Park recognized. Some other folks back in Veneta, Greg Miller, Pat Wiles, Philip Flock, Gary Miller, Corey Gray, Dana and Kendra, and Brian Prince. My goodness, thank you so much for showing up. One of my brother's lifelong friends back there. We've all grown up together, and thank you for coming out today, Brian. Over there, the good-looking redhead at that table is Park's son. So if anybody that knew my brother turns around and sees him and they think that, it's like, oh my God, yes, that's him. That is Park's son, Bodie. Next to him, Park's daughter, Maddie, and their mother, Allison, Park's wife. And so on the freestyle side, these are the guys that I just remember Park looked up to so much. He and Brandon and I were talking about just how short of a span it was, the time that my brother was competing. Literally, he won, it was the 1986, it was at the Velodrome in 86. He won the all-around that year, and that was in December. By January, he was on a factory mongoose, and so he competed throughout 87 and 88, and then I don't think he competed again. But then I went back and looked, and that's kind of was what they, everything went by so fast. That's all I can really say about that. And during that time, these are the people Kevin Jones. I remember my brother couldn't wait to go to the next competition so he could see what Kevin Jones was going to do and bring it back home and work on it. Dennis McCoy. My brother and Dennis had a long, he looked up to him so much. You mentioned Dave Volker. I'll more on that later, but Dave has been him and the guys at GT have been so good to everybody in Veneta, Oklahoma. And again, none of that would have been possible without my brother being in the picture somewhere. It all had to start somewhere. Matt Hoffman. Park and Matt are literally the same age, one day apart. They came into the sport at the same time, and of course, Matt has done just tremendous things. I don't think he needs to be introduced anywhere. Ruben Castillo, I just found out that Brandon just went and saw Ruben, and he's still doing this stuff in Austin, Texas. He was a factory GT guy. Bill Newman, my brother's, Bill's a guy who my brother competed against, and Park just had a tremendous amount of respect for Bill. Chris Lashua was a teammate of his, Mongoose guy, Marty Schlesinger, Trevor Hernandez, Joel Alamo. Of course, Bob Morales and Eddie Fiola for having the vision to start this thing called the AFA, which is the circuit that my brother competed in. Russ Akawa, who I believe is another BMX Hall of Famer. And you may be able to help me out here. I was a 12-year-old kid at the time. I believe Russ was like the manager for all the guys on Mongoose, because I just remember he was always the go-to guy because Mom was dropping off her 15-year-old son at the Tulsa airport with a big old bike bag. They used to travel with their bikes in these big bags. And I know that because when Park landed at the Velodrome in '86, his forks were bent, and he had to run to the bike shop, get a new set of forks. So he won that competition on a blue Trickstar with chrome forks. But I can remember Mom always coordinating with Russ Akawa, before she put her baby on the plane. Now, obviously, we're here today because my brother's being recognized for his tremendous talents and his contributions to this sport. And yes, of course, I'm a biased observer. I think my brother was among the best to ever get on two wheels, While his skills were tremendous, on a bike, if you ever got to be around him, it was that person that was Park that was so special. And underneath all that talent, there was just this incredibly generous, fun, and really just the coolest brother in the world. And I got the best experience because I got to be his co-pilot along the way. So growing up in Veneta in the 1980s, you guys got to realize we don't have Wi-Fi. You don't go on there. There's no YouTube. You don't get to see what people are doing on the West Coast or anything like that. Our only exposure to the big world of BMX freestyle was we've got to wait until next month when the next edition of free, first it was BMX Plus, and then is it Freestyle or Freestylin magazine? Okay, see, I'm just a co-pilot, guys. I was just along for the ride, And so we would have to wait for this magazine to come out. Again, I told you Park had a lot of advantages. Not only are our parents the two coolest parents in the world, our parents own the store in Veneta. Okay, so if you go to Veneta, there's this little convenience store called Shout and Sack. And that's Mom and Dad's store, and it's been that way since, Dad, 1976. And so they then would make sure that these magazines got stocked on the shelf. So at the beginning of every month when the magazine guy would come, sure enough, we're running over here to get our next, let's start flipping through these magazines. Before long, we're flipping through these magazines and, damn, dude, that's Park right there, So now he's got these pictures in this magazine. So you can imagine Mom and Dad are like tackling people coming into the stores. Now, you got to buy this magazine. No, you know what? You don't want to buy it? I'll give you 12 of them. Here you go. That's my baby right there, This is, and all the while, here I am just like, oh my God, that's my brother. He's that cool. He was. So, so here, so fast forward, and and BMX was such in my brother's DNA, and I would welcome anybody. This sounds, if you ever have a reason to travel to Veneta, Oklahoma, I would ask anybody to stop off at Fairview Cemetery and go see Park's grave. It is literally a picture. It is him on the cover of Freestylin magazine. That is his headstone, okay? This is just how much this stuff was in his veins. So, again, I told you it was so cool growing up as Park's little brother. Now all of a sudden Park's a factory mongoose guy, And so what happens? Park gets out of school. It's 1987. Yes, 87, 88. Now this is 88 maybe. Whatever, 87, 88. Again, I'm still just a little kid. Park's 3 years older than me. So he goes on tour with but these guys pick him up. All right, they show up, Veneta, Oklahoma, this Suburban, all decked out mongoose bikes, pulling this half pipe, Marty Schlesinger is the only responsible human being there, so he's driving and controlling everything. And you got Park Carter, Trevor Hernandez, Joel Alamo, and Chris Lashua in this vehicle. and they pick up my then 15-year-old brother at Veneta. But did I mention they stuck around and did a free show for all the people in Veneta? So now you got this tiny little town called Veneta, Oklahoma, would have never heard about this sport, and now all of a sudden they've got this guy, Park Carter. Not only is he pretty darn good, but he's a factory mongoose guy, and these guys are coming and they're doing a courtesy show in the parking lot of my mom and dad's store. So they leave. Their first stop's in Kansas City. Little 12-year-old me gets to tag along, man. I get to ride in the wagon with them all the way to Kansas City, and still never told my mom what happened on that trip. So yeah. So again, it was a surreal experience growing up with Park. So Park goes on tour that summer. Well, later on that summer, I guess they had like a little break, or I don't know what they did. Maybe they went this way, they turned around and started going this way. Well, they passed through Veneta again. Well, this time they weren't on phones because it's 1988. So I don't know how they were doing this. They were probably leaving notes at bike shops and show stops along the way, because somehow the GT team met up with the Mongoose team in Veneta for like their midsummer break or whatever. And guess what? Veneta got to see another show. This time it's GT and Mongoose. So now so that's where our relationship with Dave Volker and the guys began. So, so I think what has just happened now is that because of my brother and his talent, and also I think you got to be a pretty cool guy for this many people to want to come and hang out in this tiny little town of Veneta with you. And so because of this, now there's this whole next generation of these kids that have been exposed to something that I don't know how this would have gotten to them in the early 1980s in Veneta, Oklahoma. But it did, and boy, it came to them in a very special way.
This trophy up here is one from our first year for Bob Decker, who helped so much in BMX. And his son, Randy Decker, has become a good friend of mine and was one of the dominant riders. He was a JMC guy and a free agent guy, and one of the dominant riders in the Trosper Park area, raced nationally, did very, very well. It's hard, it's tough to get into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame because the talent level is so deep for such a long time. And Randy, you surely deserve it. And for me, not just another good BMX guy, but my friend, it is an honor to induct Randy Decker into the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame. Randy.
All right. As you notice, I have no paper in front of me. I was here 3 years ago, accepting Dad's award, and my sister was with me. So I had a nice long speech for it and read about the first paragraph, and that was it. It kind of went off from there. My big thing here is recognition to everybody that was involved. I look around this room and, from the people of our era, Gene Roden, Leon, your dad. You was quite a bit younger than I was. But, the JMC days, when I was co-factory there, it was because of Leon Williams. He kind of brought me along, made sure I had somewhere to ride. They went GT. I got co-factory tracker, and shortly after that, I went factory free agent for about a year and a half and retired in 85. But I started BMX racing, and I found a picture of a trophy that I had that was actually in 1977 in Moore, Oklahoma. So Noel Turner, which a lot of y'all know, he was in my neighborhood. His little Noel and Eddie Turner drugged me out to the track. We used to ride around the neighborhood all the time, and drugged me out to the track, and I raced and had fun, and didn't get into it fully then, but it kept going. Then the Trosper opened, and I started racing more and more. And then my dad became a track operator about 1980, and it just kept going from there. And all the fun, I can't say more. Thank you to the bike shops. All the bike shops in Oklahoma City. for what they did for all of us. My personal favorite is House of Wheels. Bill Hicks took care of me. He helped Dad with the BMX track. Back then they'd always say, don't let them know that Bill Hicks is, putting money over here because, then it seemed like a bias thing. As a kid, I didn't care. Let's just go up there and get our parts and let's go back to the track. Going through some pictures, I see where we dabbled in side hack racing a little bit. It was kind of neat to give my grandson a ride on one of the bikes out there. Did that a little bit earlier. I mean, it's awesome. BMX, the family. And Cash, you mentioned so many great people, from Oklahoma that made the national circuit. And how do you choose from all those people? My class, Rodney Cooper, John Copeland, Kevin Dunsmore over here. He taught me how to stick to the track, hold my lane. Daryl Pulliam out of Kansas. All these people, in this area that were strong riders. And I know I'm forgetting half of them. But, they helped me and taught me, how to be a better rider. Leon, I told you earlier, your dad rode my ass. He did everybody, But I remember many trips. My dad dropped me off over there at y'all's house over off of, Scott Street. I don't even know if you remember. You were so young. He'd just, all right, you got to do this. If you do this, it was hard. I couldn't imagine what it was like being his son. The road trips. My God, William Quick. I remember the Chandler, Arizona trip. Dad tells me, William Quick's going to go with us. I mean, it was cool. But that's BMX. It's the brotherhood, the sisterhood. It's the family, as you are today. Like I said, Dad passed away 3 years ago, pretty close to the day. We're getting real close. Inducted a little bit after he passed. But before he passed, I got back into BMX a little bit, I'm not going to start the whole speech, but wherever you are, Kenneth, you're still the one responsible. Come on, let's go riding. And we got to go to one national race during COVID, which was in Pryor, Bounce Back National. And I won both days. And it was awesome. The Rileys put on an awesome race out there. It was, and Dad, my gosh, coming back to that, it was what was even funnier is he's sitting there in the truck watching it on his phone. God, it was hot. It got hot. But, and the memories, going back to the motel room, putting your bike in there, cleaning it up, getting ready for the next day, And when we came back to the track, Candace, you're the only one I'm really seeing right now. I don't have my glasses on. But, Candace and Adam Scott, everybody, it was like you never left. It's a family out there that just, whether you step out for one day or 30 years, when you come back, they all know who you are. They don't know the particulars, but they know you from those days and how they continue to lead, and this legacy of BMX continues. Now, one brother, and he's sitting right there. Come on. Come here. If I cry anytime, it's what this brother right here did. My dad passed away October 21. Adam hadn't been practicing, hadn't really decided if he wanted to race the Grants, didn't know what he was going to do. Woke up an hour or two late that day. But he held the sign of my father in contribution, to my father, as they're going across, and contributed that race to my father. And come out of the gate, wasn't the best first turn that you could ever imagine. Going in, that is. Well, the Lord was with him, because coming out of that turn, he was out front. Don't know how, don't know where he found the space. Nothing dirty, nothing but clean. But he came out in first. And I want to say again, thank you. People like that is what makes BMX. It takes all of us. And, I can't say enough, and I keep seeing Kevin over there. God, the elbows I took from that boy. But it's what taught you to be able to take the national tracks. Because if you wouldn't ride, I don't want to say dirty, competitive, you didn't last. You had to get out there and ride, and you had to hold your own. But that's it for me. But everybody, again, thank you for the nominations. Cash, thank you for what you've done. And you're part of all of this, bringing the BMX Hall of Fame around. On a state level versus a national level, where some of us can only dream of a national level. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For many of these people, this is one of the great moments of their life, and we're glad you're sharing it. And Randy, that was great. That was really great. But one of the reasons you'll never see this again is we have two brother-sister teams going into a Hall of Fame in the same year. And Leon and Yolanda Williams, when I was leaving the sport, they were coming in. I became friends with Leon's dad, and I got to watch this career. I've seen careers grow, but their career grew very, very quickly, and in a way that none of us had really ever seen before. And certainly nobody had seen a brother-sister team grow up to that level nationally, Leon. And to, I believe, 2 years in a row be national number one in their class. That's just never happened. And that we got to have Leon and Yolanda Williams here in Oklahoma. And you talk to any of the pros from that era, and they know a lot about them. And I got a lot of calls from Mike Miranda and the guys that were around at that time congratulating for that as well. And what an honor it is on behalf of USA BMX and the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame to induct the brother-sister duo. Yolanda can't be here today, but Leon has big shoulders and is going to take double duty on that. So please give a warm welcome to the newest inductee of the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame, Mr. Leon Williams.
How's everyone? I'm not really much of a speaker unless I'm angry, so kind of shy. But on behalf, I want to talk about my sister, Yolanda. We grew up together. Older sister always, getting on my head about things until one day I got too big and, she couldn't fight me anymore or beat me up. But the thing about BMX for her is she used to watch me race with my pops, and she just wanted to race one day, and they asked her to fill in. And she filled in for one day on my bike, and she actually won. And the rest is history for her. I have to give her more props than me because I feel like she came onto the scene and was national number one within 2 years. And she actually beat every woman that's there, Sherry Elliott, Debbie Kelso, all these girls in our era. I'm not taking away from anybody's era. We had our own era, 80s. I think she raced from 81 to 85 or something like that, or 80 to 85, something like that. I'm not for sure on the dates, but I'm giving her props for doing what she did in a short period of time. I feel like this is a great honor for her, but I also feel like the national honor for her should be in the works as well, because there are certain things that was achieved for her that a lot of women didn't do. Like, for instance, I think it was 82, she won every national there was, except for the grants. No, matter of fact, I think she won the grants. She lost one national that year. So for her, I just want to say, she did a great job. She was my motivator. And I'll get to the other motivator later, which is our pops, and that's the reason why she kind of left the sport. She wanted to be a girl. My dad was really hard on the way he approached the game of life, whether it's growing you into the person that you are as a young man because you don't understand things, to the man I am today that understand what he understood, and now I'm instilling it into my kids. So it's all a life circle. But I want to congratulate her on that fact. And then, so round of applause for Yolanda.
Yeah.
And about myself, I want to get to the congratulating people for who helped us, and it's including Yo-Yo. My grandmother, first of all, I want to congratulate her for introducing me to BMX back in Lancaster, California, before we moved to Oklahoma in the 79, I think. We moved to Oklahoma and we found Trosper Park. My dad found it. I actually wanted to race, and we started racing. And from that day on, the torture began. I just want to say, thank you to my grandmother for getting us started. Moved to Oklahoma. My dad got the torture began at the track where all the things was going with racing. So he actually was one of those guys who basically said, if you want to be good at something, we're going to work at it. And that's where all the sprints come from. In streets, we were sprinting every day. Met William Quick, met a lot of guys from here. I'm not a great speaker, but I want to say that's what I was saying. Anybody who forgot, I don't know who you are. I apologize ahead of time because I remember names. I don't remember faces a lot because I was the young buck of the family. My dad had a lot of relationships with you guys. He the one built the legacy of helping you guys, training. He was a real good guy, really nice, very alert, but also he was a mean guy when you get on his bad side. So that's the part we saw at home and when we training, but he was actually a really good human being trying to help out everyone. So I want to thank him. I want to thank my grandmother for getting me started. Also the special thanks for me goes to my sister for motivating me. We was always in competition, whether if she won, I know I had to go win, or I hear it later on at home. Also my mother, who was the peacekeeper, she's the one who actually conned me, made me come here. I want to say that only because she really felt like it was the flowers I should be receiving for our due diligence, our blood, our sweat, our tears, that we went through this and became champions. And I want to thank her, tell her I love her very much. My dad passed 2 years ago. I hate talking about it, but he was a really great motivator, but he was very, very strict in life. Like, demanding that you do things. If you want to do it the right way, you got to do it the right way. Don't take no shortcuts. Make sure you treat people right, and things will come back to you. So at the end of the day, I want to say, Pops, I love you, and I thank you guys for having us here, and we'll go from there.
About 4 years ago, Adam Scott and Charles and I started this Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame page. And once again, we began to dig out the history. Who did this? Who did that? Where were the tracks? Who were the track operators? Who are the industry people? Who are the girls? Who are the guys? All of it. And about 2,700 people have joined that page, and just to contribute. And we want to keep asking you to contribute. Put your pictures up. BMX is a sport where nobody rides the bench. And everybody's important, and every racer's important. Mrs. Cooper, you were important. Everybody is important to BMX, and I think that's part of the theme here tonight. One of the names that popped up consistently, and also because I'm good friends with Candace Tucker, and she kept telling me about this Bob White fellow. And then the nominations started coming in. Well, I think once a few of you realized the Hall of Fame's here to stay. we're going and we're building a good community. We're building a legacy. We're building a great board of directors with Jeff and Charlie and now Adam and Randy, you're on it as well. I mean, we're building a great thing here that can continue, right? But once people realized we were here to stay, we started getting some fun nominations, and Bob White was one of those. And it would not be practical for me to tell his story beyond what Lance Gunter is going to do. We've asked Lance to come up and accept this award. And on behalf of the USA BMX, the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame, we are proud to induct today Mr. Bob White into the 2024 Hall of Fame.
That's awesome.
Well, first of all, I want to give thanks to Cash and his team for putting all this together. Him starting that Hall of Fame page, I mean, it brought a lot of us old guys back to BMX. We kind of fell away from it. We went through our, adulthood, and we kind of got away from BMX. And so I feel like it's brought a lot of us back, and we built a pretty strong family here. So with that, man, I just want to say thank you for that. That's awesome. Now, about Bob, Bob left, an undeniable footprint on the history of Oklahoma BMX. I mean, he committed to riders creating massive opportunities where there weren't before. Bob was truly a trailblazer for the sport and its people. White's S&R's team name is synonymous with Oklahoma BMX and is an important part of our history here in Oklahoma. If you raced in the 80s, 90s at Charleston Park, Sooner Pearl, Jinx Riverview BMX, you knew who Bob was. So many Oklahoma greats rode for Bob. Adam, just got Adam Scott, Ronnie Renault, Candace. Several of us are still here, that are here today. We rode for Bob, and having rode for Bob myself, I got to share in a lot of those same memories. Taking Route 66 from Oklahoma City down here to Tulsa. Even though it took us, 3 hours to get here, we still made it. So, Bob, he was the guy. He was, if you seen him, he was usually wearing his gray sweatpants and smoking his Marlboro Red 100s and drinking Diet Pepsi. He drove an old Ford van and drugged this white trailer around, and if you knew who Bob was. So from putting kids on bikes to dressing them out in those highly visible blue and yellow red uniforms. Those blue pants, I think they were the CR pants. Those things were hot and itchy. I hated them, but we all had to wear them. Bob was a stickler about wearing your uniform. So, but Bob helped so many get their start in BMX. Let's see, Bob was never one to hold anyone back from a better opportunity. He actually encouraged it. He was also looking for more opportunities for the team as a whole. He started out by, joining forces with Wheels and Pedals. And then also we added some other sponsors like Answer, Airwalk, also moving the team to Tulsa, and adding the OKO2 riders to the roster. This induction is somewhat bittersweet, but well overdue. It's much deserving, as we honor a man who did so much for the sport of BMX and his riders. It's unfortunate, that us kids, as adults now, he's not here for us to thank him for everything he did and the passion and all that he poured into this sport. A lot of people didn't know this, but Bob was not a wealthy man. He was rich in, generosity and, the care for the sport, but he wasn't rich. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment up on the north side, but if you seen him at the track, he had all those bikes, and he'd put kids on bikes, and he made sure you were able to race on race days. So for that, man, we're all truly grateful. And I speak for everyone when I say, Bob, we love and miss you, and we appreciate everything you did for Oklahoma BMX. And, with that being said, I thank everybody that contributed to making this happen. And, Bob, we love you. Rest easy, friend. Thank you, guys.
Can you recall your greatest BMX race you've ever seen? Like, do you have it in your brain? I mean, it might have been yours. It wasn't any of mine. I have two. So we have this event called the Guy Cooper event, and Harry Leary was out there, and we lost Harry a couple months ago, and it was a 2-moto thing, and he had to win the last moto to win, and he was riding a 47-pound motorbike. And anyway, long story short, Harry won, and he cried, and I cried. It's one of the great moments of my BMX life. but it's really second place. The greatest moment of my BMX life, Randy already mentioned, and it was at the Grands 3 years ago. And we'd actually done a military tribute, and we had a picture of your dad that we were going to do for that. And then Adam had a smaller, I think we had a poster, and Adam had the picture. And when they were doing the flyby with the camera to introduce his class, he held that up, and everybody in the world got to see it. And 20,000 people were watching that feed. And so everybody got to watch Adam Scott do this thing. And, you know, everybody, when they put the camera on you, they're like, hey, I'm great. Adam was pointing. Adam did what he always did. He pointed to someone else. And then he went out and just absolutely thrashed the class. And there were so many of us jumping up and down. Like, that's the last time, Adam, that I screamed like a girl. And I want to thank you for bringing that into my life. It is one of my great honors in BMX to induct today into the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame, class of 2024, the legendary Adam Scott. Adam.
Man, I've cried about that race so many times, and twice today already. Mom, Dad, Michael, we made it. I'm truly honored, humbled and honored to be an Hall of Fame inductee and now a part of the board of directors. I first would like to thank God, for without him, none of this would be possible. And if you don't know him, come find me. All my family and friends in attendance today, Lita, Talon, Jody, Mom, Dad, Michael, Wendy, our armed forces for continuing to give us our freedoms that we have today and fighting for our great country. Everyone that nominated me, the committee for selecting me, all the previous Hall of Famers that are here tonight, thank you guys. I plan to be here next year just like you guys are. ABA, USA BMX staff, for without them, none of this would be possible for my entire existence and before that. And congrats to all my fellow inductees today. It would take me forever to thank everyone, especially for me. Being long-winded comes natural, right, Dad? But I've got the bullets ready, points that is. So let's get started. I've been beyond blessed to have so many amazing people in my life by my side. This past week, going down memory lane, trying to dig back into 30 years, I've called many of you to kind of fix things. I thought I had it right, and then I would dig something else out, and you guys changed me. And I haven't never left this sport, so it's just a continuous thing that I had to jump back in and dig in and find out. I didn't want to miss anyone. Thanks for the help this week, guys. Many of you know my more recent history. Obviously, you can watch things online now a little bit better, but I want to go back to when it all started, 1992. I played other sports, soccer, baseball, wrestling, football, but BMX, I got started right after Christmas in 91. My dad got us that dyno. My brother got a Diamondback from Al's Bicycles. At the time, my dad worked with Daniel Franco, who we actually just lost at T&W Tire. His sons, Nathaniel and Daniel, were riding there at Sooner Pearl BMX, and they told him about the track. We went and checked it out. I believe it was in January because we just got those sweet bikes. So we had to wait for the weather to get a little bit better. We went out there. Back then, it was an open track. You didn't have to worry about getting in. So we went out there, rode, and ran across Randy Webb. Many of you all know him. Great man. Gave us the lowdown. Probably too much information at first, but we got started right away. On February 23rd, 1992, the 160 of Awesome Adam took second place in his first race. He followed it up the next week with the first. We were all hooked at that point. We were there every time the gate dropped and many times when it didn't. I turned intermediate by winning the day before the state championship, before the state qualifier that year. Remember, guys, I had those bent forks and I still raced the intermediate class the next day, got killed. We had an amazing Sooner Pearl crew out there. The Fox, the Smiths, the Nelsons, Kennedy, Hubbards, McIntosh, Tuckers, Reeves, Nance, Pattons, Schouses, and many, many, many more. The first team that I was on was actually ran by my dad. It was Racer's Edge, the Oklahoma Outlaws. Tammy Hemming out of Arizona was in charge of it. My teammates were Jason Shorter, Eric Warren, Zach Smith, Doug Evans, and a few others, along with my brother, Michael Scott. My first national was in Conroe, Texas. I got 5th. I remember barely qualifying at locals sometimes, but I started getting Jay Jones right at the finish line every week to make that main event. I got last, but I made the main. I turned X later that year, and the real struggle started. In 1993, Brian Scarborough joined our team. We hit 3 nationals that year, the Gold Cup and the Grands. Went to Mexico while we were in El Paso for the first time, and I got one of those BMX rings that probably turned my fingers green later that week. I came across a writer interview that I did with Beth Nelson. She used to put these publications out monthly. And she asked me in that interview what I like most about Sooner Pearl BMX. I told her the girls. We had so many out there back then. I got a sweet free agent that was Brad Nallens, but I ended up getting it stolen because I hung out in Walmart and left it outside. I thought my friends were playing a trick on me. Came out, this thing was gone. That's where Bob comes in 1994. Like you heard earlier, he helped everyone out. No questions asked. I had 2 bikes that next day, getting on it, okay? Red Line at the time, I believe, Dad. He sponsored me and gave me a ride. Every Saturday morning, my dad had taken me to his apartment up on 63rd. I lived out in Mustang, so I was farther away than everyone else. So he would drop me off. We'd go get the coolers full of ice, and then we'd run around and pick everyone else up. And when I say early, I was probably there at 5:36 before Dad went to work. So I was with him for a long, long, long time. Those Route 66 trips were the best. We always wanted him to speed up a little bit, but he never took it. He didn't want to pay those tolls. I remember when we try to catch up with girls, like, speed up, we're trying to talk. No, same speed, Bob. Back road Bob is what they call him. I want to talk about Mighty Michael right there, my brother. He's a doctor now, guys, pulmonologist here in Tulsa. If you ever need a great one, he's your man. He won the 1993 Gold Cup champ that year, okay? My dad had kept him an intermediate, I believe, right, for a long time. Back then, sandbagging, we hear sandbaggers. So my dad didn't want to hear that. He put him on a small gear. My brother spun the track more times than all of us did that day and could not win if his life depended on it because he was going as fast as his legs could go. Y'all remember that, right? Later on, I kind of was pushing him through the years. We were practicing turns out in our front yard, a flat turn around a tree. No idea why we were doing it, because it probably, we all did dumb stuff back then. He didn't really take the bump that I gave him one time. It was probably too hard, learning from Charles and all that. He ended up going through a plate glass window on the garage and slicing his arm open, okay? So he took a little delay there. He also, one time, I got him to jump this triple we had going into turn 2. My mouth's getting dry, right? Yep. Anybody got water? Babe? Anyway, so we crashed into the triple, right? And he ended up biting his tongue and cheek. Here comes my dad. Saving the day. Toss it. All right. Anyway, so later that year, I was racing Shelby Tucker, I believe, and Larry Reeves. I was racing higher up in the expert class. The only injury that I've had in BMX that I actually broke a bone was that weekend. I broke my wrist, separated my shoulder. Past that, I've basically taken the pounding all these years and just got up and raced, right? So later that year at the Gold Cup, I got offered to ride for JRS. I was riding for Bob at the time with the Smiths and Ashley Hill. Tammy Ira and Mel Bach were the team managers of that team. I was still riding for Bob, so at the time, I walked up to him and talked to him about it. Like Lance was saying, he wanted the best for his riders. He told me, hey, that's what I do it for. I want you to step up to the next level, and gave me the go-ahead. So after that, I started riding for JRS, finished that out. I got those sweet L's. Chris, way back then, was building my bikes, and he's been doing it ever since. Chris Lansbury, give him a round of applause, guys. Hey, Chris, everybody calls him at the track today. That year, I went to Detroit with Tim Smith, and my dad had been getting me to kind of drive a little bit, in the Sooner Pearl in the back and stuff. Well, Tim just slides that seat back on the van and says, come on in. So I'm 15 years old helping drive us to Detroit that year. Mel brought me a complete cruiser that weekend, and I had no idea that he liked his riders to set his own bike up. Didn't know I didn't work on a bike. I go get in practice that weekend, snap out of the gate. Nothing was tight. My bars, we were almost late, so I just ran up there. My bars turned, and, end of story, I had to work on that bike later. Later that year, Hubbards. Sorry, got mistracked. I used to ride with the Hubbards all the time in the races, like many of us did, okay? I just came across in that deal a notarized permission slip, so they could take me to the hospital in case anything happened. I still have that from all those years back. Candace, we were, I think, maybe El Paso at some point, and I was probably trying to flirt, but I'm making fun of her or something, what we do when we're done. She tossed me, I think, towards a bed, and I ended up landing on all those bikes with those pedals. Man, boy, did they hurt. I got on the cover of the Later that year, Charles offered me a ride. Charles Long, riding for LPD with Robbie Smith, Candace. That first week or so that I was on the team, me and Charles were going in the last corner at Sooner Pearl. Single point race, mind you. We take each other out. I just got on his team. We clean each other out in the last corner, and we just kept, basically, he taught me how to fight and like that through those years. Yeah. Win, 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 right? At all costs. That year, I got on the cover of the BMXer. I don't know if Charles threw Gork some money or what, but ended up getting on the cover. I actually got another shot, too. I read it this week. Gork had commented that Adam Scott had a better picture, weekend picture-wise, rather than this finish, a fourth and an eighth and expert. I spent a lot of time chasing Bubba McIntosh, a lot of the older pros. They taught me so much, banging bars with Charlie and everyone else throughout that year. In 1997, I went to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and Billy Allen, a longtime friend of mine, had talked to his dad about getting me on Lowy Axel's factory. I said, heck yeah, I want to go. Dick asked me if I wanted to ride for him. I said, yes, let's do it. They were so amazing, Dick and Jackie. It was a full ride. First everything paid for that I'd had. My first race for them was in Wichita. I actually tripled that Sunday in jeans because I didn't quite yet have my leathers. So that was an awesome experience. That summer, ABA had the summer safari where they went from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, and they hit tracks for 2 months in between the nationals. We got to go on that. We jumped in Colorado and went all the way to the end with it. It was freaking amazing. We didn't get to go to DC that year. That was a stop because our dually broke down. We actually had to get a U-Haul. We were a vendor at the time. Had to unload the whole trailer, put it in the U-Haul, and go to that national event because they were expecting us to be there. In Blue Springs that year on tour, I crashed and cut my head open. Went to the hospital with my dad. Michael was there checking, coming in, seeing me on tour. Got staples in my head, so when I went back, Jim Riley dubbed me Staplehead. Gork talked about that in the BMXer as well. He made a comment that, worse yet, I was denied a girl's phone number at the restaurant that night. Gork was always wisecracking. They actually gave me a staple remover, so all my teammates later on, like a couple weeks later, they were able to take those out. I think we were in Rockford or something, one by one. They each got one, so they enjoyed doing that. After that year, I got Top Gun that year, and I've gotten invited to the NAG 5 Challenge. I believe that was the first one. I got to verify with Gork, but I was NAG 3 going into that, so I got selected. It's the top 5 in the age group, and they have all these classes together, race for one winner. They had big prizes. Panasonic sponsored it back then and had a bunch of things. Didn't make the main, but still got invited. That year, fun fact, I never made a main at Grands until I turned pro. I would win the ROC, class cruiser, same guys a lot of the times, but I couldn't get through that main event until I turned pro. 1998, I went to Pine Bluff again. There was no more Lowy. Sitting there, I got a Team Me jersey. Me and Michael Goodman start talking about it, and we decided to go pro that weekend. Wasn't planning on going pro, but when we got there, we decided. So later that year, Lonnie Moore from Kansas saw potential in me and sponsored me. Went to Phoenix that year, and I missed a moto. He paid for all the flights and everything out there. I drank some apple juice, and, I couldn't make the moto. At that World Cup that year in Rockford, it was the ABA World Cup. I got second in A-Pro, a fifth in A-Pro Cruiser. That second main, I was tied with Mo. Going into that third main, we both had 5 points. We got balled up in some traffic. Around the track, I wasn't able to get by him, and he ended up with the overall win. But it was his home track, so that was pretty amazing that he got to do that in front of the fans. After the World Cup, I flew home. I got an opportunity to go on tour with Berlin Harris. I flew out to Santa Barbara, taught a clinic with about 150, 160 kids with about 30 trainers. Did that for a week out there. We went to Lakeside and Idaho that summer to some nationals. During that time, I was sponsored by Answer, SBS, Extraskin, Dope Products, BMX Products, Tetro, Pro Concept, and ACS. That year after DeSoto, I had some success, so I went and stayed with Jason Whitted in Kansas. I had this brand new Pro Concept. Chris had just built it, actually had his wheels on it because he hadn't built mine yet. And we go hang out. We're riding. We'd ride the tracks and different things. Back then, he had a Camaro, had a booming system in it. We're driving down 35. The bike rack broke. We didn't know it. He taps his brakes. We look back. There's no bikes. We try to search, find them. We cannot find these bikes. Somebody had picked them up. We ended up getting them back the next day randomly. Back then, you couldn't jump on Facebook and say, hey, I lost this bike. So we were able to find it. It was amazing. Chris, I owed him some wheels after that. In 1999, I had some random teams, VMXC, Second Sucks, Lakeside Cycle League. I got my first pro win in Atlanta in Cruiser, the picture Keith used on the video. That was with Big Daddy Eric Roop. I got that out there. That year, I won the ABA World Cup, San Antonio, A-Pro Cruiser, so got that title. That summer, I'd been racing for a computer company, and we went out to Salt Lake. I got to go to Fuzzy's house on Sunday. How amazing was that, riding his trails? It was so enjoyable on that Sunday evening. Went to the NBL Grands that year with the Renaults. I had never had the random start gate, so I did horribly. And the pro sets I wasn't used to because I came from the ABA side of things. Struggled with that. That year, 2000, I ended up riding for Lechner's in Tennessee and Kansas that year, and that's when it comes full circle back to Berlin. I got a contract for him, moved out to California, taught clinics all over the country. Kids went to schools. We were sponsored by ABA at this time, Gatorade, Power Bar. So we just did that the whole year. Went all over the country from east to west coast. Ended up going to Argentina for the 2000 Worlds and over to Canada 3 or 4 times with him. I turned AA in DeSoto that year. I made my first AA main on that Sunday because I turned on Saturday. But got into the main, had a couple issues with some AAs earlier that day. So main event come, Charles Townsend puts me over the corner. I think one of my last mains, Matt Hayden, put me over the corner. So 2001, I back home, me and Andy running Sooner Pearl. We get this bright idea. We're going to go to the Marine Corps. So Bob and Kelly Frails takes over for us. Brian Scarborough right back there, BMX brother, ended up being my recruiter, put me in. I did 4 years from 01 to 05 with 2-1 Infantry Division out of Camp Pendleton. After 06, I came back home. BMX was my outlet. I jumped back into it. I had some struggles and things like that with the military that I didn't really know I had. But I was able to dive back into this family that so many of us know everything about and just be Adam Scott, the bike rider. Okay. So I went through those years, did that. I got to send some thanks to, I was on the board for 12 years with track operators Jason and Kerry Willie, Steve and Dana Markham, and Levi Wilson just took back over. I got to send a thanks to Prime, MJT, Double Cross, Rival, Throwdown, and my most recent sponsor, Answer. And last but not least, I have to thank my loving and gorgeous wife, Wendy Baker. God knew what I needed, you, and I love our life and family that we built. Thanks for all your support and your understanding throughout the years. I'm sure I missed somebody, and I'm sorry. I really could spend up here all day showing my love and appreciation for all that BMX has given me. The relationships and experiences are endless. Thank you to everyone for your contribution. It's been an amazing journey, and it's not over yet. In closing, I'll leave you with a quote that stood out to me in the Marines, and it applies here today. President Ronald Reagan said, "Some people spend an entire lifetime wondering if they made a difference. The Marines don't have that problem." And each one of you here today don't have that problem either. Thank you, and I love you all.
In 100 years, if they write a book about Oklahoma BMX, the biggest chapter will be about the Riley family. Impressed is not a good enough word to watch what they've done in the world of BMX. There's a famous photograph of Cindy Riley pushing a kid up a hill that's muddy, and she's got mud everywhere. And that is just who they are. We have this Olympic track right out here. Does anybody know who rode the first lap on that property once it was, not when it was a track, but when it first opened? Cindy Riley. Cindy Riley did. She took the very first lap. We've got pictures of it. And that's just fitting that she would be like the forerunner of great things to happen. Her husband, Dale, is another of those guys that could easily be nominated into any Hall of Fame twice. And I chose to put him last in this presentation. And I'll have some wrap-up remarks when Dale is done. But I've come to know Dale Riley as a bike guy, as a guy who's contributed to the sport in ways that they'll be talking about him for decades and decades. And but to get to know him as a human is even better. And it is truly an honor to induct into the Oklahoma BMX Hall of Fame, class of 2024, Mr. Dale Riley. Dale.
Wow. I've got a speech here real quick. Everybody out here, I've loved every speech. I've loved every bit of it. Even though our lives are different, maybe different eras, we're all living the same dream, man. Amen. We're all BMXing. We're all, and even me, because I still currently race, if you don't know, but when I get on the track, I'm still 12 years old, man. But anyway, all right, to start with my speech here. Good afternoon. For those in attendance that don't know me, my name is Dale Riley. I'm a lifelong Okie, and I've been a BMX enthusiast most of that time. At the end of the 2023 season at Mays County and Pryor, I put down the mic, and I didn't think I'd be getting behind it again, but here I am today. My BMX journey started in Miami, Oklahoma on a dirt road I grew up in the 1970s on my Huffy Thunder Road. A couple years later, some BMX magazines started finding their way into my elementary school. About that same time, we'd go to the grocery stores. I'd talk my mom into letting me go to the magazine racks and read magazines while she shopped. And of course, I was reading BMX magazines. I was reading magazines about kids like me, adults, people with the same passion for riding a bike that I had. I was reading in these magazines about these races, and I'd see advertisements for these races. But I was in Miami, Oklahoma on a dirt road. These races might as well have been on Mars or any other planet. I didn't know how to, as 12-year-olds, how to get there. But I would, I'd read them and just dream. Anyway. That was 1980. Fast forward to 1982. I was 12 years old. I lost my mom to an illness. So my dad stepped up to become a single parent for a lost 12-year-old boy who just wanted to ride his bike. I was the only child from my parents' marriage, so now it was me and my dad. You know, my dad, I'm gonna go off script. My dad was older when I was born. He's 50 years old when I was born. So we were in different planets. My dad was a D-Day vet. He was a World War II vet. And I was a 12-year-old boy at this time. So, I mean, we were planets apart. But he knew, anyway, he stepped up to become a single parent. A few months later, though, 1982, summer of 1982, Miami Riverside BMX opened up in my hometown. I talked my dad into driving into the park to see my first real-life BMX track. We got there. It was in a park. It was wide open. You know, you could go out there and ride. So there was other riders out there riding. I didn't have a bike that day. I was out there just watching. But I left there knowing I had to go back that next Saturday. So next Saturday was race day. Next Saturday morning, I was out there. We watched a race. I was out there. And again, I'd read these BMX magazines for so long. I mean, I knew Redline, Diamondback, GT. I mean, I knew the jerseys, I knew the uniforms, I knew what was going on. But now I was seeing it in real life versus on the pages of BMXA or something. We left there that day, and I had no doubt BMX was where I needed to be. One small problem: I needed a bike, a race bike, and I needed to talk my dad into getting me to the races. So, a few days later, we were in Joplin, Missouri, because from Miami, Joplin's not real far. We were up there at Joplin Bike. There was a Mongoose and a Redline on the showroom floor. There were beautiful bikes with these big price tags to a 12-year-old kid at the time going, wow. My dad visited with the shop owner. We talked a little bit. My dad had been a welder and a machinist for part of his life. So he'd actually worked with 4130 chromoly and stuff a bit. So he appreciated what the bikes were, and he appreciated the quality of the bikes. So anyway, we left there. I didn't have a bike yet, but we had a better understanding of what we were up against. So about a week later, the bicycle shop there in Miami Bicycle Shop, we went in and I got a brand new Redline Pro Line 2, 1982 Pro Line 2. So the following Saturday, I was in the gate. Got third place. And, you know, from that moment, I can still remember that day like it was yesterday. That moment was when my BMX really life started. I started meeting my BMX family, you know. From that, summer 1982, I was in that first race. And 82, I got to witness a lot of these people today that are in here racing in their prime. I mean, I was a 12-year-old kid, 82. Some of these inductees tonight were at their top, and I mean, I was the kid on the fence watching them do their thing. I mean, I was dreaming about being so many of these riders you see. I think I've saw every one of these riders that was inducted today, you know, in their day. Anyway, also even on the weekends when anyway, 1982 is when it started. And I raced all through the 80s. I mean, I just started racing more and more and more. You know, even on the weekends I wasn't racing, I even did the vert ram freestyle contests. I mean, I remember Park. I rode with Park quite a bit. I don't know if I was in my Cindy's here somewhere. She's from Veneta, and so I was in Veneta quite a bit. Or I first met Park at the Miami Riverview BMX. But anyway, I have stories on almost every one of you here, but I'm not going to get off on that. Anyway, that was my childhood though. My childhood was BMX racing and a little bit of freestyle inside, just basically riding my bike. I lost my dad in 1992. Now looking back, I really treasured all those miles we did to the BMX tracks. You know, we talk about the Route 66s and stuff. Oh man, my dad was the same way. We'd Route 66. We'd stop at every coffee shop, whatever it took. But you know, those were the memories. So we're going to fast forward to 1997. 97, well, life was a little different. I had a daughter, Megan. I had a wife, Cindy, and my son, Nathan, or our son, Nathan. So life was a little different. I'd heard that several of the older guys were still racing at Jinx because I hadn't raced in a few years. So we set out to check it out one Saturday, and I remember not being able to find the track. It was not where I last left it. Somehow, we found the new location as they'd moved downriver, because I had visions of this track with the bridge and stuff, again, where I raced, where I left it. Went there, it wasn't there. But anyway, I think we asked the convenience store or something, and we discovered, no, it's down where, originally it was where Top Golf is. Then it had moved down to where the aquarium is. But anyway, I remember 1997, I was 27 years old, going out there thinking, man, I'm too old to get back into this. But I did it. And actually that same time, my son Nathan, who's out there somewhere, he was 4 years old. He got in the gate for the first time. So 97 was kind of chapter 2 in the BMX phase. We raced from 97 to 08, we raced moderately. We didn't chase anything. We weren't chasing dreams down, but we were racing enough to say we were racing. I mean, we were enjoying it. Maybe BMX hobbyist, I guess you'd say. I mean, we'd always go to the grands. I mean, honestly, I think my first grands was 82, and I think I've missed 2 grands since 1982. And I mean, I'll see you there next month. I'm jumping around a bit. But spring of 2009, we're going to go to DeSoto, Texas. It was DeSoto National. We were on our way back from DeSoto. Again, we live in Miami. I mean, Miami, as you know, Miami's up the northeast corner. We're the last Oklahoma exit. Coming back from DeSoto, we were talking, Cindy and Nathan and myself, going, wouldn't it be nice to have a track at home? Because at that point, we were calling Sand Springs our home track. It was our nearest Oklahoma track. We'd go to Spokes occasionally up in Springfield, about the same distance, but Sand Springs fit our schedule better. And anyway, but on the way back from DeSoto in 09, we said, why not? Why don't we go talk to the city of Miami? So we got back. We started going to some city. We talked to city managers, mayors, started going to some city council meetings. We just stayed after it. I know one time at one point, someone from the city asked Cindy out there, she said, what do we have to do to keep you guys from coming back? Simple. Let us build this track. So 2009, we got approval from the city of Miami, and Miami BMX was built in Taylor Park. Spring 2010, we had our first race there. I thought I knew so much about BMX because this was 2009, and I'd first raced in 82. I thought I knew a lot. I realized I knew nothing. I mean, that was such a learning experience. 2010, 11, early even 2009, we were building it. It was all learning experiences. We continued there at Miami BMX until 2017. It was great to see a new generation of BMXers discovering the sport. Several went on to achieve state, Gold Cup, Rock, district plates. 2010, I believe, is when I actually had the first old school event there, kind of going back to my roots. I mean, I'd even advertise on Craigslist and stuff, hey, come to this old school event and stuff, because I wanted people at the age that I was then to come back into the sport that had drifted away. Anyway, we raced until 2017 there. Our lease was up. The city had a vision for us to move to a better location. So we shut down, and then several things happened. Miami's not a real big town, about 14,000. So the city manager left, the mayor changed, the head of parks left. One of them retired. So we kind of fell through the cracks. So 2017, Miami BMX was no more. About that same time, I had a life-changing experience. And I had an accident racing at the BMX track in Lowell, Arkansas. I broke my back and ended up being life-flighted to Springfield, Missouri for surgery. It's a fluke crash, but my spine was driven into the ground like a spear. When I had hit, my internals were pushed into my rib cage. I could barely breathe. I remember not being able to talk. Mainly I could just grunt. I remember I could see my legs out in front of me, but I couldn't pull them back under me. I had to take my hands and actually pull my legs back under me. So the entire flight, I just kept moving my toes to make sure I had some feeling in my toes. Anyway, I left Springfield, Missouri with 2 titanium rods and 8 screws connecting 5 of my discs together. But that time was amazing. Look, in hindsight, looking back, a lot of my BMX family, especially the ones from the Springfield, Missouri area, came by, visited. And this was a time of social media. So 2017 is when this happened, like I said. And so people were just all over social media checking in, wishing me well. I mean, my whole BMX family, the people I'd grown up with, people I'd known, and even the people I'd just met at that point in time, they all checked in on me like I was part of the family. I actually had a pretty bad wreck at Sooner Pearl BMX in 1999 at a state race. Bruised my spleen and my kidney, and I was hospitalized in Oklahoma City for a couple of days. And I remember it was a different time back then. It was pre-social media. We weren't racing it a lot. We were, I wrecked. It was actually during practice I wrecked. So we just carted off to the hospital, and there we were. But with this wreck in 2017, everybody was behind me. I mean, there was other tracks all around the area that even had benefit races for me and the family. It was unlike. That's when I really, really realized just how deep this BMX family was. So I started getting healthier. I started getting stronger. I went home on a walker. I started walking on my walker back and forth in front of the house, just logging, a quarter mile, half mile, whatever I could do. As I got stronger, a lot of things started going through my head. Am I ever going to get on my bike again? Am I going to race again? Am I going to, a lot of things happen. So about that time, Mid-American Industrial Park in Pryor, Oklahoma got a hold of us. They were wanting to build a track and wanted to know if we'd want to run it. And I said, I talked to Cindy and my son Nathan at that time and thought, how could I not? How could I not want to give back to this community that's just given me my life back? I mean, they gave me the strength to get back on my feet, to get back in the gate. They gave me the strength. How could I lose and not get my health back when I had the BMX family behind me? So yes, that's when Mays County BMX came into play. So 2019, we built Mays County BMX, had our first race there at the end of 2019, towards the end. We had originally went there thinking we'd run it for a year and train someone else to take it over. But 2020 rolls around, COVID hits. Everything's shut down in the world, not just BMX. So after a few months of racing, USA BMX asked us if we thought we could handle a national event at Mays County. Multiple reasons. We're not in the metro area. We had tons of space for social distancing. We weren't in a city park, so we weren't governed by city. We weren't even in a city, so we weren't governed by a lot of things. So it made sense. So the Bounce Back National was born. We all started getting the track into some sort of shape, as it had not been touched in months due to the winter and then COVID. And we had a 28-day deadline. But Mays County team came together and got it done. The National was a success. We finished out that year and ended up staying until the 2023 as track operators. At that point, Mr. Marvin Odell, who's out there at the back, Marvin Odell stepped up. He was a track dad and a volunteer. He stepped up when we stepped down to be the new track operator at Mays County BMX, fill our shoes. He's still doing a great job over there at Mays County, keeping it going. I mean, it can't thank Marvin enough. My biggest contribution to BMX is definitely being a track operator, having a place for racers to go and seeing all the first-timers hitting the track. And I'm proud to say that many racers have done well in their careers that started with us, whether in the Miami days or the prior days. So 2009, that trip back from DeSoto, is really when the track operator part of us happened. It's when we built 2 tracks. It's when we put so many kids on tracks. Without that 2009 trip back from DeSoto, the Oklahoma history books would be way different from 2010 to now. Because I don't know. I've never looked at the numbers, but I don't know how many first-time riders we had at Miami and at Mays County, but a lot. I'm not saying they've all, went to the top, but they've all had the chance to experience BMX and being part of the family. I was going to say thank you again for this honor. Thank you to all the volunteers that have helped at Miami and Mays County over the years. I would not be here without each and every one of you, and every one of you is up here in my heart with me tonight. And thanks to everybody at Hardesty, Sand Springs, Yukon, and Mays County for carrying the BMX torch through current. So this is the end of my track operator chapter of my life, but my BMX book is still being written. I'll see y'all at the races. That's it.
Thank you, Dale. I'm going to wrap up with a few words here, if you guys don't mind that. I'll limit this to 47 minutes. I'm just kidding. I've just got a few words to say. And you've heard you've heard the words about family, about brotherhood. And for this speech, I'm calling it brotherhood. You can be offended at the next event, okay? I only had so much paper to write on, so I just wrote brotherhood. BMX allows us to strive for something different. They say, give somebody something to do and they'll do okay in life. But if you give somebody something to become, they'll do even better. Each of you that has competed, Adam, Scott, you've become something beyond where you began. And that is just the process of life. What a great thing BMX has allowed all of us to strive for. Whether we're digging or working in the snack bar or building trophies or running video, BMX gave all of us something special to be part of, and I do call that the brotherhood. In a different time, these trophies and things we competed for set us apart. But the sport brought us together here in this room in a unique way. The brotherhood was formed so that we could rely on each other. Last year, 2 years ago now actually, I had some weird kidney things going on. And I ended up in the hospital. My wife got 10 phone calls from BMX, not my business people, not my family. 10 people called and said, "Where do I donate a kidney?" Rusty Roberts, many of you know him, Texas BMX Hall of Fame. He was the first one. And how can you even experience something like that? That came from BMX, and they were asking where they could help. And I tell you tonight, the brotherhood is strong. To each of you that has lifted another, for those who pray for your fellow friends, Nick Long's baby is in an emergency right now, and a lot of you are praying for that baby. Please keep that up. Because when you do that, you become excellence in motion. And I know I speak for many of you when I say these words, that you truly are my brother. You are my family. We've stood beside each other in good times and in greater times. We have wept together, we have laughed together, and we've bled together. Why is that? The brotherhood is strong, and it will always be that way. We have defended each other in this endeavor as warriors from a sacred tribe. This is what we do. This is the brotherhood, and it shall always be that way. And I declare to you this afternoon, here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, your family is my family too. And your kids are mine, and my kids are yours. And this is the true code of the brotherhood. See, this life, Adam, is not meant to be endured all by ourselves. And know this, that where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. And your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. The brotherhood is strong. Sometimes in life, what looks like the finish line is just the starting line. Recently we lost a couple of friends in BMX. My buddy Malin Abrams and Harry Leary both died. And I don't think we should all be surprised that Harry Leary beat us to the finish line. And now he stands at the starting line of eternity, knowing all the great secrets of the universe. And knowing how we feel about heaven, I don't think we would bring him back even if we could. See, he got there sooner than us, but that's what he did on his bike also. He blazed a trail that all of us get to follow one day, and he'll be there smiling to say, "Champion, good race." To which I will reply, wow, I never knew what you looked like from the front. May God bless your every step, and may the wind rise to carry you on your journey. Congratulations to each of you here this afternoon on a life well lived. God bless America, and thank you for allowing me to contribute a little bit to this sport we call BMX, to whom I have a debt that I will not be able to pay during my lifetime, but I'm going to go out swinging and making sure that I give it my best. I tell you tonight, and I thank you, the brotherhood is strong. You'll have a great time.
Congratulations to the class of 2024 inductees. Their stories were amazing, and their contributions, no doubt, made a lasting impact on the birth of our sport. I'm on a quest to help preserve this important era of BMX history. My only question is, who's next?